All right. Okay, so everyone is seeing my screen? Yes, okay. So we want to welcome everyone again to Environmental Fridays. It is personal. This is season 4. And today we have a really packed schedule. So if you want to learn some more about Environmental Fridays, some more details about Environmental Fridays can be found at www.theenvironmentalfridays.com. So we encourage and invite you to check out our website. This coming March here, well, starting from next week, actually, we have a pretty packed March and a diversity of speakers and topics. We'll be in the northeast corner of Trinidad, where we will hear from Suzanne. She's got an environmental station up there and does work with turtles in a location called Matura Beach. So you'll hear from her next week. Then the following week, Professor Dorfman at Arizona State University, I believe, is where he's located. He will talk to us about using biomimicry, chemical principles to help solve environmental issues. So we look forward to that as well. Then we come back to right here in Berrien Springs, and we'll hear about the Berrien Conservation District and what they are doing, their history and their programs. Then we'll go back to Tobago. I think this will be our second Tobago episode this season to hear from Camlin Melvin Panton about Tobago's main ridge. And then we'll head on to Missouri to hear from Vanessa Fraser on environmental health in rural minority communities. And she's doing a lot of great work out there. So that's our schedule for March. It's packed. So my co-host today is a friend. We began to know each other back in undergrad a couple of years ago. And we've stayed in touch. She is an attorney and she's the owner and managing director of Belmont Estate Grenada. I've been there. You guys need to be there. Okay. I am telling you, the food, the ambiance, it is absolutely amazing. And in fact, don't take my word for it, her business, Belmont Estate Grenada, was voted 2023 USA Today Best Caribbean Attraction. So you would be hearing from her. She would be introducing Penny when Penny gets here. But Shadell, you could say hi.
Good morning, everyone, and it's great to be on the program. Thank you so much, Desmond, for having me on. I think the most important thing that he should say about the business is that we are a business that is very committed to environmental stewardship. And on the island, we try to showcase our environmental initiatives so that other private sector businesses can do the same. So it's great to be here, and I'm looking forward to the program today. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I just got another email. She's still having difficulty getting on. Okay. So thanks, Shadell. We'll be hoping that she comes on so we could do our intro and interview of her. So at this point, what I'll do is introduce Danny, Danny, do you said you have a one slide? Danny?
Yes.
You have one slide, okay. So a quick introduction of you. She's from Canaan, Tobago. She's a Tobago girl. She is CEO and co-founder of Connie Cycle. And you may or may not be hip to this, but Connie Cycle is a merger of Carnival, Trinidad Carnival, the greatest show on earth, by the way, Carnival and Recycle, because in fact, she saw a need for what do we do with the costumes after. And so Danny came up with some friends, I believe, to solve that problem, came up with her organization called Connie Cycle. And she is applying her chemical engineering knowledge, skills to this problem. This is what creative engineers do. So Danny, I will stop sharing for a minute to have you share.
Thank you. It says you disabled screen sharing.
Hold on. Okay.
That was a wonderful intro, by the way. Hi, everybody.
You
Okay, got it.
got it now? Okay.
Yes. Cool. So this is a very simple one pager. I really want to talk through all the pictures that you're seeing here. So as Desmond said, Carnival, which is one of my favorite annual celebrations in the Caribbean, is celebrated by hundreds of thousands, even millions of people across the globe. It is celebrated in over 50 different countries. And personally, to me, it's something that I love. I grew up with my mom playing. She still is playing. She hasn't missed going to a carnival in over 20 years, except for the COVID season where nobody could travel. But it's something that stems from slavery roots back in Trinidad and Tobago, and now in modern day, it represents liberation and freedom and partying. And so in Carnival, there are two main events. There are parties called fetes, and then there is the Carnival Road. And when we're going down the Carnival Road, we parade around in these beautiful, elaborate costumes that you see in blue here. Now, I just want to remind you that this is the annual celebration. So in order for you to participate in Carnival every year, which many people do, you have to purchase one of these elaborate costumes every year. You're not allowed to use them. And that's how we kind of started the Carnival Cycle. We asked the question, what happens to these beautiful $1,000, 2,000 US dollar costumes every year, since they can't be reused? And so that started our journey into figuring out, what happened to these costumes. And after a survey of friends and family that we circulated throughout the internet, we found out that at least 39% of people discard of the body wear, which you see as kind of the bra bikini section. And then 29% discard of the head pieces. And then most people try to keep the big backpacks because they're statement pieces and they might hang them on their wall. But we also found out that even the people who keep them, they end up in their closets to collect dust. And so these valuable materials, we set out to apply the circular economy principles and divert these costumes that end up in people's closets and end up on the streets, on the ground, from the landfills and back into the hands of local artisans, back in the hands of designers to use for future carnivals, and into the hands of emerging designers because we are selling them at affordable prices because they're secondhand and not virgin and imported into the country. So every carnival, we partner with over 40 organizations. It's a big effort to make this happen. So we're truly a community organization to set up recycling locations, to transport the costumes and then to break down and sanitize the costumes into its raw components, which are real feathers, goose feathers, ostrich feathers, plastic gems, synthetic textiles, and then we're able to resell these materials and then even donate some materials on a monthly basis to people who fill out our application online. Items that cannot be resold as is are upcycled. So as you see in the bottom picture, there are some feather earrings. Well, those feathers were kind of battered and broken, and we couldn't sell them as single whole feathers. So we, in fact, made them jewelry that people could wear instead of throwing them away. So since our inception in 2019, minus the 2 COVID years where there's no carnival, we were able to collect and recycle over 1,200 costumes. And because we are the first to pioneer this in the world, we've been featured in over 5 research papers with people who are wanting to figure out how to make carnivals and carnivals similar to Trinidad and Carnival more sustainable. And again, I mentioned we have partnered with over 40 organizations because we cannot do this effort alone. So yes, that's my little pitch.
Yeah, all right. So thank you so much, Danny. We are still waiting on Janelle, so we have maybe opportunity for at least 2 questions to Danny before we move on to our main speaker for today.
Desmond, I have a question. Danny, this is really commendable what your business is doing. I think it's really a great idea and something that's really needed throughout the Caribbean and the world where Carnival is celebrated. I also wanted to inquire as to whether costumes were sanitized and sold to, other destinations. For instance, other carnivals that come later in the year, like in London or Miami or New York, or even in the Caribbean islands like Barbados and Grenada that have carnivals later. I mean, is there any collaboration with these destinations for reusing some of these fantastic, costumes? Because Trinidad certainly has some of the best.
Yes. While we haven't been able to sell the reused costumes to the carnivals yet outside of Trinidad and Tobago, we've sold it to individuals going to these carnivals. So we've sold it to individuals going to carnivals later down the year. We've sold it to burlesque designers and performers because they use similar materials, and we've sold it to samba dancers. Another thing that we do collect is dead stock material. So each year there may be costumes that have been produced in excess, which are unused and new and have no need for sanitization. We also resell those too, and people buy those in larger quantities.
Okay. It may be good, in terms of business to business activity, that the designers themselves could get involved. So that takes off some responsibility from you to do business with other organizers in other countries. It may be something that could be looked at as well. But you're doing incredible work, and it's certainly a model for all of the Caribbean to follow. Are you doing work with other countries so that they too can get on board with the environmental care of carnival costumes?
Yeah, so we've actually done this recycling campaign in 4 different countries. So we did it in Jamaica, Barbados, US for Miami Carnival, and then Trinidad and Tobago Carnival, which are 2 separate carnivals now.
Okay.
And we have someone who is in Bermuda who we've given her permission to kind of adopt the model there. And to our surprise, she started to make a crown, making business for little girls out of the recycled materials. So now she's profiting off of this, and it's something we do want to roll out in other countries. So yeah.
Congratulations.
This is Walter Marie Eminent. Quick question. It's a fantastic entrepreneurial idea, very brilliant. I must commend you on that. Thinking outside the box. Have you protected, patented your process? So that, because I could see this being something that other investors or business owners or business people might want to pattern. It's such a unique idea. Do you have any type of legal, copyright, patented protection, things like that?
No.
It's not something you should, I guess I should just put it that way.
Okay,
No, not yet, but that's a good idea for us to look into.
Oh, yeah.
yeah, Walter, you could probably talk with her offline and help her with that.
Yeah, point in the right direction. Yeah, I point in the right direction because I've seen so many Caribbean or minority created entrepreneurs, right? Whose proprietary assets were plundered and depleted, and they got no value. I mean, we just have to look at the steel band, right?
Uh-huh.
The steel itself, how that was almost lost to us as a
Yeah,
culture, but
yeah,
offline I could kind of maybe give you some direction on that.
okay.
Thank you so
All right.
much.
Okay.
Both of you guys.
Okay,
Thank
thank
for
you.
the
So we're gonna
opportunity.
move on. Our main speaker has to take off at 10:30. So we will have, I think Janelle just came in. Janelle? I think she's there. Janelle? If not, I will.
Yeah, it says connecting to audio, so she's probably waiting for her audio to load to connect.
Okay. Yeah, so what I will do is go ahead and introduce our main speaker for today. Are you guys seeing my screen? Yes, no?
No.
Okay, so let me put that up and introduce our main speaker for today. All right, very good. So all right, you seeing it now?
Yes.
Okay, good. So our speaker today, Dr. Nick, for short, Nikolay Anguelov, is an associate professor in the Department of Public Policy at the University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth. He has a PhD in policy studies. And one of the interesting things that I found out doing this is that he graduated from the Fashion Institute of Technology for his undergraduate work, and so did Penny. She also graduated from the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York. He is an expert in this topic. He's written 6 academic books. 2 of them, one deals with the dirty side of the garment industry and fast fashion, and the other just came out last year, The Sustainable Fashion Quest. So it is my pleasure to have you here with us and present to us on this topic. Thank you so much for accepting our invite.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So
I guess I will jump right into.
yeah,
Hi,
there you
thanks for so I'll share my
go.
we'll go right into the PowerPoint and we'll go straight into the story of why I am doing this research. And as Desmond said, it is a function of my prior to the academy life, where as an immigrant from Eastern Europe, as the Berlin Wall fell, my family started immigrating here, and I ended up in New York in the interesting time of the 90s. So I went to FIT and I started working in the fashion industry, which at the time was undergoing major changes with the liberalization of markets, the removal of the multi-fiber agreement that was guiding the sourcing and product positioning of global apparel markets. And make a long story short, as I was working in product positioning for first Federated, then Liz Claiborne, then I went into licensing, working for Victorian Company, which amongst our clients, we had Disney and Givenchy low-end merchandise. Everybody said, if you want to advance, you need to get a master's degree. And I said, oh, okay, well, I'll go back to grad school. My parents are academics, getting settled into the academic life, and I'll get a master's degree and I'll come right back and be a fashion exec. And then I fell into the academy and doing research, and make a very long story short, I was noticing as I was continuing through my education and finishing my PhD, which was focused on international trade, that everything that we knew about international trade in terms of volume, growth, economic incentives, economic downturns was being absolutely turned on its head in the fashion industry as the Great Recession was raging. So as the world went into this Great Recession in 2008, all industries went into a gradual decline, contraction, restructuring, except one: apparel and textiles. If you look at that graph from the National Textile Association, you can see the growth rate where all other industries are contracting just started to escalate from 2008 and has continued at that trajectory to today. Why? Fast fashion business model that completely changed the way that retailing has operated for decades. So that growth, and now that everybody's talking about sustainability, I'm going to assume that you know that it's a big issue with the growth and the waste and everything that's happening. So I'm going to assume that I don't need to give a preliminary explanation of what that's happening. But that growth is happening on the growth of also the changing of the composition of textiles. This is from my friends Christy and Patsy Perry and Timo Rissanen that co-authored this article that was really showing, as the industry is growing in volume and changing in type, what is the preferred material that is spearheading that growth? And it's polyester and it's man-made materials. So the carbon footprint of the industry is not only augmenting because of the large volume of product that's being sold and discarded, but it's also augmenting because it is very dependent on petrochemical, very polluting processes to make these new materials that are driving this change in business models, which I will go over in a second. So as we're all talking about sustainability, the growth is not stopping. We're talking about it, but we're all looking at the fact that these man-made composite fibers are taking over fashion production. And the studies are coming out there talking about, as much as the fashion conglomerates are promising to work towards sustainability and circularity, these are now slogans that everybody's repeating relentlessly. There's no evidence that any of that is happening, and that we still need to be much more honest about the major problems that we're seeing. So my presentation today is like, let's be focused on the truth of what we're facing so that we can incentivize entrepreneurship towards actual solutions and cleaner production and lower energy intensity manufacturing and distribution. So why is it so challenging to change this growth pattern, which is equivalated with our understanding of economic growth, which is you got to buy stuff in order to have economic growth? Is because the fashion industry went away from its traditional, we call it mass market and luxury fashion, into very defined subsectors that all rely on very fluid product lines and also fluid trend-setting business models. We all know fast fashion, and some of the leading brands I've put up there: H&M, Zara, ASOS, Topshop, Primark. But there's also now this new crop of retailers called the super fast fashion conglomerates, and they're the Boohoo, the Misguided, the Pretty Little Things, the Sheins. They are working exclusively online and business models based on what they call micro trends, where I think Misguided promotes itself as a business model that introduces 30 I'm not going to say the wrong number, thousands of micro trends a month, incentivizing their young customers to like switch trends like that. But the worst problem of it all, it is because we have embraced this hybrid fashion way of dressing called athleisure. And we have the big labels that are growing in bits and bounds. When I wrote my first book, they were not even part of that book because they didn't exist. So 2015, my fast fashion book comes out. I call it the year of fast fashion activism towards sustainability. I had never heard of Uniqlo, LO Yoga, Outdoor Voices, Lululemon. I didn't know what Lululemon was until like 2 years ago. I'm like, if we're so complaining against fast fashion, why are these brands growing? Why are they appearing? What hole in the market are they filling? What is this functional apparel craze that we all have? It all started with the yoga pants that everybody was wearing 20 years ago, right? That we made fun of as a social branding of the mom, the soccer mom in the yoga pants way of dressing. Now it's athleisure and functional apparel are called by the fashion expert is clothes that you can exercise in, but you wear while you're doing anything else but exercise. Or as my sister-in-law says to my brother, you can wear your nice sweatpants to dinner, right? So all are sold basically or growing basically online. The retail model is called click add to cart. And it's made in a way that is sold at very affordable prices. So as you're clicking and adding to cart, you're always first stimulated by how affordable that piece of clothing is. For decades and decades, since I entered the fashion industry as a student, first thing that you learn in fashion management and merchandising, Fashion 101, FMM 101 was, what is the biggest thing that fashion retailers face in terms of customer satisfaction and customer relations? Buyer remorse. You're going to buy something, bring it home, regret the fact that you bought it, and you're going to return it. So your successful business retail experience is geared towards negating that buyer remorse. Why did buyer remorse existed since the advent of fashion? Because clothes were expensive. You went into the nice stores, you fell for the brands, the lighting, and you bought a pair of jeans that was $150. You came home and you said, what was I thinking? And you go back and you return it. But that's how fashion, retail, and branding operated for decades until clothes became the price of a sandwich.
Cheap as hell.
What do you care if you bought something at $19.99 and what I mean, you spend more on that on your meal. So all of these conglomerates are operating at these price points, and everybody is talking about sustainability, commitment to sustainability. But then look at this one, Shane. I'm the fashion expert. I had not heard of Shane until maybe a year ago. It's not in my 2021 book because it was not there. Look at its growth. What is this crazy growth projection? If I'm yelling and screaming against that kind of branded retail that is happening right now, they go on the market in 2018 when my second book is going into production, they're projected to be the largest conglomerate in the world in 2025. They're not even pretending to have a sustainability policy in place. They're not even, everybody else is under the gun. They're responding to lawsuits in Europe, the H&Ms for greenwashing. These guys are like, we don't care. We know that there's a 12 to 16-year-old out there that wants to buy something at $7.99 on their smartphone, and that's what we're providing. And, to hell with you all. So what is the disconnect? Why is this disconnect happening between the growth of the industry, buyer behavior, and the sustainability messaging that it's out there, as much as we all want to hear it? Why are we falling for the greenwashing? Because of very dishonest discussion of what's feasible in order to usher or to work towards circularity, and the understanding the technicality of the industry. So I've put in a list of like the outright lies that you hear every day in media and in fashion promotion, and also the misleading messages. And I can answer all questions, which I'm presenting in 2 hours, about why is it so hard to recycle clothes in a carbon positive way? Why are we focusing on waste versus the production of new clothing? Why is it so easy to sell the recycling promise to the consumers, and even to build business models on recycling and upcycling and support those, versus address the real ecological problem, which is the weaving of those petrochemical polyblend PET derived cheap polyester based tons of crap that you cannot recycle. Nobody wants to tell you that you cannot recycle those things. There's some innovations that are happening still at the lab and petrochemical levels, but they are far from being scalable at the industry level to actually make any kind of a product line available that could be done with fully recycled material. I can go into examples later if you want to. But why do we want to hear this? Because we like to shop. Because we want to feel good about shopping. We feel that if we do something that in economics, the term is transaction cost, is very hard for us, right? Something that we can throw away. Now to plan to put it in the special recycle bin, to put it in a special place, to bring it back to the store, to bring it back to, it makes us feel like we're doing so much. I did 5 steps to recycle this stuff, which means in my head, problem is solved. I can go buy another piece of clothing. Why is this message not being challenged? Is because governance structures of the sustainability movement want to promote the move towards sustainability. And this is where we're going to go into a little bit more of the technicality of policy and why policy messaging and policy design is so important. So the actual official political and policy advent of the global support for fashion circularity, us in the scholarly circles say that was with the launch of the United Nations framework for climate change with the Fashion Industry Charter on Climate Action in 2018. So it's a formal United Nations platform in which promises are made, conglomerates are signing to it, and it's promising us as global citizens that, and I quote this from their language on their website, future legal frameworks, pay attention, future legal frameworks for sustainability, measurement, and compliance, and this is the best part, will emerge. Let that sink in. Translation. We can't do anything about none of that yet.
Exactly.
We promise that we're going to move towards something very nebulous in 10 years, but right now we're waiting on you to emerge those compliance and measurement sustainability frameworks. So how do you do that? Read my books because I don't want to bore you right now. And a whole business model. What can you do actually to design these new frameworks? There's several legal platforms that are operating. One is the REACH regulatory platform that was launched under the European Union scope in 2007, which is regulation, evaluation, authorization, and restriction of chemicals. And under it, there's specific provisions, which I have a paper now that I'm presenting in 2 hours, where it says what's regulated, how it's regulated in terms of chemical content of effluents, materials, and waste. There's also in countries that are very dependent on textile production, legal platforms emerging to mandate cleaner production and the use of filtration methods for the treatment of effluents. Those are the zero liquid discharge laws that are in place in parts of India that were put into place in 2017 that mandate the actual use of reverse osmosis and crystallization in the treatment of effluents to remove as much of the toxic sludge that's coming out from the piping of textile plants in the wet processes, which are bleaching, sizing, mercerizing, desizing, and of course, coloring, laundry, and setting. So all of those use lots of waters, lots of chemicals, lots of dyes, and these zero liquids discharge laws are actually mandating filtration. Whatever filtration is available, they call them effluent treatment plants, and thus the effluent treatment plant laws are actually effluent treatment plant. The entity is used as the name of the laws in Bangladesh that were put into effect in 2012. The problem is of how these things are implemented and being measured is that because we don't have a global unified governing body under which scope for them to operate, what is happening is the private sector is emerging to fill that governance role. And those are the consultancies that you probably hear and some of you probably even work for, like the Higg Index, the Ecotex consultancies, Go Blue, which one of my collaborators is one of the founders, who actually has an app that allows chemical companies, textile mills to track their chemical daily load usage so they can choose better chemicals, track their total usage of chemicals every day, and they put that on their environmental scorecard so they can show that to their potential clients and say, look, we have this kind of environmental scorecard system in which we can, guarantee that we're doing the best technology possible to have the lowest chemical output out there into groundwaters and environmental common pool resources where we're dumping all of that pollution. But the problem with these consultancies is that they work like any private firm, right? You have to hire me, use my app, use my metric to create your environmental scorecard. And then I have an incentive to keep you happy so that you can keep your clients happy. So I have an incentive to, as we call it in economics, to create the system of economic capture, where not only am I capturing you as the consultant without whom you cannot work, but also then competing with other innovators to crowd them out of the market that might be coming with better ways to come up for creating new scorecards and environmental stewardship and incentivizing new using materials, which is exactly what the HIC index is being attacked to right now. They're crowding all of the other people out of the market and say, we're the only leading certification body that you can work with. They're saying that to the brands and to their tiered suppliers. So that's the one part of who can help the brands clean up their act. The other part is, well, how do you actually create laws to regulate and actually enforce compliance? So again, it's under the UN Charter for Sustainable Development and the Fashion Charter, but all it does at this point is, because of the legal powers that it has, even if you're UN member state and you're part of all of these initiatives, nobody can tell you how to regulate in your own national borders. So the UN can ask the government of the US, ask the government of France, ask the government of Trinidad and Tobago to design its own laws and then provide maybe guidelines under what should be regulated. Heavy metal effluents, labor conditions in factories, specific dye input, solar panels on factories. So we can give you a grid of things that you can choose on what to implement in terms of laws. And this is what we have to work with at this point. There are only 2 bills like that have ever been passed, and just in France. One is on the banning of burning of unsold clothes. Finally, a law in France, you're not allowed to burn unsold clothes. So brands there has to handle their waste in a different way. And the other one is on the passing of a digital product passport, which is the concept of having a circular ID or having a score, a grade, if you will, something on the label of clothing that will actually measure how sustainably or better for the environment they are produced and then possibly even cared for afterwards. So these are the 2 legal platforms that we have. There's supposedly a European Union-wide digital passport, digital product passport legislation that's right now in the design stages to be put into use in all EU nation states by 2025. US, nothing. Only New York State has something in the very early design stage, just going through the State House. Maxime Bedat, my friend, is one of the designers of that bill and working with local politicians to get sponsorship just to pass it through the New York State House only. Everybody else, especially in the textile heavy production areas, which in the US still exist in the South and even in the Midwest and here in Massachusetts, where I'm based, such laws are going to take a very long time to pass any kind of a local formal legislative body. So as I told Desmond, I can talk for 8 minutes or 80 minutes, and I think this is a good place for me to stop because I'm throwing a lot of information your way, and it's complicated on 3 fronts: business models, chemical and cleaner production challenges, governance challenges. They're all integrated in a system that we all have to understand. Is it complicated? Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So can I answer questions? I could.
Yes.
And so I will just allow you to do that.
Okay. Shadell, do you want to start, or I could, whatever? And oh, there's Janelle. Janelle, your mic is off. Your sound is off. On
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. Yeah, I just got on less than a minute ago, so I missed everything. So I'll just try and follow.
That's all right.
My
That's
apologies.
glad that you're here.
Yeah.
But I was asking Shadell, do you want to start or I could start in terms of asking questions?
You can proceed.
Okay, so one of the questions I have, especially as a chemist, is what do you have to say about the dye and colorants? Because it sounds like that's one of the areas where a lot of environmental impact, directly is happening in the processing and coloring of textiles.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so there's innovations in that and on that front that with the help of Ariel Creighton, who, if you look at my 2021 book, she's the co-founder of Go Blue, the company with the app that helps dye factories, well, all factories, but particularly the ones where dyeing and finishing is happening, track their dye loads. There's innovations on the dye front, such as high fixation dyes. They have limited use still because they're more expensive and also use mordants, and mordants are not necessarily a better chemical input than the heavy metals that they're trying to replace. But right now there's so much funding at the university level to develop dyes that are based on bacteria. They're based on different sources of natural dyes. The challenge is to make them steadfast. And that's where the heavy metals come from at this point, unfortunately. There's a lot of innovation where you can derive the dye, but it's not steadfast. So if you put it into a mass market product, it's going to leach out into the washing of 3-4 dyes. Yeah. So the mordants are the ones that are being added now to the natural dyes. Is it an improvement? Yes. Does it save a ton of water? Because particularly for cotton, the average batch of cotton is dyed 5 to 7 times. Cotton, as much as we love it and as part of the cotton blends, is very dye resistant. So you need to keep on dipping it in the dye, throwing the dye out, fresh dye, throwing the dye out because of that low fixation rate that it has. I'm very excited. I read the Journal of Cleaner Production. I'm a public policy person who became an organic chemist. I'm sorry. So I'm trying to figure these out, but I'm so excited to see how much research and how much funding there is towards the development of cleaner dyes.
What's the name of that journal?
The Journal of Cleaner Production.
Journal of Cleaner Production. Okay. So yeah. Yeah. Question?
Yeah, I had a question. This is Walter here in Atlanta. Hey, Nikolay, right?
Nikolay.
Nikolay. Thank you for the presentation. Great information. Hey, listen. So your technology, your new processes are obviously going to be an additional cost to the business sector, right? Mm-hmm. What is the ROI that proposition? Like what is it that would convince a corporation to engage in this additional cost? And most businesses now do have a sustainability team, so it's very, they're very adaptable to this type of new technology, but they like to see what's the ROI, right?
Yeah, the return on investment. So we call it eco premium business model, and it's emerging slowly. And there's few companies that are doing very well with sticking to the fact that we're going to offer more expensive product, but we're gonna provide the fact and the backing of true information that this is done in the best possible environmental way. So the social pressure still needs to be there. Just to show you, like when I published the first book in 2015, when I went to visit my alma mater in 2009, when I started the research as part of my PhD, and I met with the chair of the Department of International Trade and Marketing from where I graduated and entered, and I told her what I was doing. She stopped me right there. She's like, don't waste your time. The competition is on cost. Mm-hmm. Now there's entire graduate programs in sustainable fashion. When I first published the book, there was not even a course in sustainable fashion. The fact that socially we're putting so much pressure on it, that there's actual laws coming into place, that governments are challenging the brands like H&M on greenwashing, is what I'm doing here as a catalyst is to focus the conversation onto where we need to have the solution, so that we're not putting the cart before the horse with a bunch of promises that the public hears constantly. They hear sustainable, green, eco, and believe it because they come from sources of authority. They come through the United Nations platforms. They come from government platforms, from the brands themselves, from INGOs who are promoting their own services. And in study after study on consumer behavior, another journal that I read like crazy, International Journal of Fashion, Merchandising and Management, shows that the average fashion buyer, if you survey them, believe that H&M is, 100% sustainable, no carbon footprint whatsoever. And these are not, and they're usually, because of access to respondents in these surveys, use like university listservs. So they're talking to young people, but fairly educated young people and very environmentally conscious young people. And they're already buying the story that the problem has been solved. Just by all they need to do is go to the store or put their clothes in this bin and it's done.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we need to have that social pressure that keeps the movement going. The revolution's coming, but we need you all to join in the resistance and be honest about, hey, solutions are not as easy as you dump your product right here. And the brands will respond to it. I can have a whole other conversation on innovators like Refried Apparel that are very popular in doing upcycling products, and they're growing like crazy. New Fiber Welding, which is a whole new platform of producing yarn from petro-based inputs out of Peoria, Illinois, now has product lines that are being in development with Patagonia and even with Zara. Evernew out of Seattle that pioneered just maybe in the last year technology to actually recycle poly blends, PET blends, break down the cotton from the polyester, and does actually repolymerize it for use. They now have a product line coming out with Zara, and those brands are listening because they know that, social changes are coming. Like the deniers of climate change and the drivers of the big SUVs, they're being crowded out of the market by the rest of us, right? They're still there. They're driving their big old SUVs with a Trump flag in the back, but they are being crowded out of the market because the social movement is moving like we need better product. And what we can do at this point is stay active, stay vocal, put our money into these brands, look for those brands, look for the announcements, look for the innovation, support them with your dollars so that they can actually compete and fight with the Shanes. They're out there, but their market share is very small and they need to grow.
So I see La Bianca's, you have a question, comment?
Sure. Yeah, thank you, Nick, for what you do. It's wonderful to see the impact you're having with your books and your lectures, and Desmond too for organizing this very informative series. Now, you talk about business models, and there are different, as you know, lifestyles out there that you have to market to. And of course, you're talking about the brands, but there are a number of studies that show that there's a trend now toward minimalism.
There is.
And how do you see, I mean, obviously that trend is about using less. I mean, it's about being much more careful in what you select, a lot of buying in secondhand stores, and it doesn't really work on the idea of profit. And yet it's maybe one of the most important trends in terms of addressing the problem, isn't it? If people become less engaged with brands and rather more committed to sustainability through scaling down.
Yeah, so we joke with this. One of the slides I showed was on the growth of polyester, and I mentioned one of my friends was the co-author, Timo Risanen. He was a director of sustainability at Parsons School of Design and now is at Technical University, Sydney. And we're big fans of what Vivienne Westwood, the late, great Vivienne Westwood, was doing. And she went very public saying, let's just be frank, clothes have always cost a lot of money. they should cost even more
Mm.
in order to properly compensate not just the artistic power behind the creation of clothes, but the environmental impact of their production and care and wear. We should hold on to our clothes more, like we did. Mainstay of clothing has always been hand-me-downs. So actual terminology that Timo uses in his work is degrowth. So
Yeah.
degrowth is growing in terms of how to commercialize it with a business model. The upcycling folks like Refried Apparel are doing that, but they still need to stay in business. They're just using reclaimed material to turn it into newer product. It's probably a neutralizing trend, but also the trends of supporting secondhand consignment, local collaboratives of clothes exchange. I learned that young people are forming clothes exchanges to minimize the waste is indicating the interest in doing that. What is frustrating is that the culture of digital influencing is falling behind. 2 days ago, Al Jazeera contacted me to get my comment on the de-influencing trend that started on TikTok just very recently. And so it's influencer kids, right? Because that's what they do on TikTok. You do the mini videos where you create a TikTok to influence. Now the message is de-influencing. Don't buy this. Don't buy this. So they're sending these messages to each other now, which is very important. So the debate on that front is, yes, we want to see that happening, but they also have that as influencers, they're also making money, right? As a digital entrepreneur. So they also kind of face an incentive to move into don't buy this, buy this instead. So they're doing like these like hidden promotions. And that's the interesting part about entrepreneurship and fashion and looking for ways to fill a hole in the market. Holes in the market come from lack of responding to customer demand. When cultural forces are creating the customer demand, the entrepreneurs in the market are looking for ways to put a product together. So what Adriana is doing with Otros por Nosotros, where one of our participants is, Maria Rula is working for them, is fascinating because there's a big push into embracing indigenous designs, indigenous dyeing techniques, indigenous component. Donna Karen is a big proponent at forming these partnerships. So there's like these niches in the market that need to emerge. I'm unfortunately wearing something that my university makes me wear at presentations because it has that brand. When I tried to wear it at doing a documentary, the was like, why do you have the Under Armour brand? I'm like, I can't fight the culture completely yet. There still needs to be sales happening and brands being promoted. Is that supporting the product lines that are better in order for them to be viable is what I'm trying to generate a little bit of discussion on. But we don't have the answers on how to engender the change to embrace degrowth. We don't know how to do that. The luxury fashion brands, great. They're on board. They love it. They want to sell you fewer items, but very expensive items. And that keeps them happy. You buy, a Louboutin for $5,000, you can buy it once a year. They're fine with that, right? They're very much on board with this. They want you to buy expensive stuff and not that often. And then they want to set and create the trends in a very metered way so that they can not waste their resources and maximize their profits. The other alternative retailers that have the internet and the influencers at their disposal and a young consumer, fairly young consumer, that's the other thing I need to stress is why these business models of overconsumption are so popular is because the main fashion demographic has switched from adults to children, right? The main consumer now, when I was a student, was like, who's your main target market? Female, 18 to 24. That was like, if you failed that answer, you failed out of fashion school. Now, if you ask that question, who is your main target market? Who is your main consumer? Doesn't matter if they're male or female, 12 to 16. They're the fashion decision makers of the family. They tell their parents what to wear. They have the allowance that allows them to buy clothes all the time. They're digital brands with their Instagrams that are constantly showing off and changing their looks and trends. They will lose an arm before they're caught in the same Insta moment from 24 hours in the same outfit. And as Bill Maher said on his program, and I hate that I have to give him credit because he's controversial, but about the disconnect between the young generation asking and marching and talking like they care about environmental stewardship and climate change, you would say, Greta Thunberg, who I'm a big fan of her, I'm so this is not a dig, but she has 5 million followers. Kylie Jenner has 320 million, which is, and all Kylie Jenner does is promote consumption, buying. So even within the segment of young people who are vocal and politically active and out there asking for change from the adults, will they understand the chemical processes that I went through? Do they care? They don't care. They want us, the adults, to solve it because they're kids.
Yeah. And you're really doing something important because most kids do not know about fast fashion and how destructive it is. It's probably next to, I mean, you know, the food thing is huge too. But this is enormous, also in terms of the impact on the environment. So
Right.
And I'm glad you brought that up. And I don't have that much time, but I definitely want to raise an issue with the fact that this is just one sector we're looking at, right? This is just one sector. But if you look at the proliferation in modern economic, we call them utility functions, of the mixture of products and services that we consume on a daily basis, right? If you look at the growth of these products and services that are reliant on what we call fast-moving consumer goods, and what has become a fast-moving consumer good, fast-moving consumer good is a product that you don't hold on to for more than one calendar year. Now we have smart technology. I mean, how old is your iPhone? Right? So e-waste is now beginning to bubble up as the next issue to be addressed, right? Where cars are becoming a fast-moving consumer product because leasing has allowed us to keep on switching our cars all the time and drive a better car. So we're moving into this creative destruction economy where it really is destructive, y'all. And that degrowth call for looking for alternative business models of better product, more quality product, less marginal consumption makes economists very, very uncomfortable.
and it's un-American.
It's un-American, but they don't know how to not equate growth with marginal consumption. All they do is teach you how to increase marginal consumption, lower the prices so that you have the largest consumer surplus possible. And that's economic growth. And until we change the understanding that you have to internalize the social costs of that consumption in a way that you need to add a markup or a price for price clearance of social costs. Again, we're working on it. It's not easy. It's going to be a while, but we need a buy-in from the buyer, changing consumer behaviors, and stimulation of entrepreneurship of business models to emerge that are looking to provide better solutions and better options. And I'm so excited. There's so much good stuff happening. I know I'm doom and gloom when I talk, hopefully for another talk for all the good stuff. But the guys that are doing the recycling platforms, the new dyes that they're pioneering, the fact that they're growing and they actually are putting product out on the shelves is very, very, very encouraging.
So I see, do you have time for one more question? I see Winklet has a hand up.
I will answer, and I'm sorry I need to go. And if they fire me from the other gig, okay, because this is a lot of fun. I mean, it's fun what we're talking about, but y'all are awesome.
Okay.
Hi, I came on very, very late. And I came onto the slide where you were talking about burning of unsold clothes. I never even thought about that as a concept. What are the general ways in which people do away with unsold clothes?
They're still mostly put into the garbage cans, believe it or not. People will say that, like in America, we have drop-off stations. I have to make a choice to put him in a bag and to drive to the drop-off stations. At my recycling bin, I'm not allowed to put clothes in.
Okay.
So the push now is to actually have curbside recycling for textiles because they're the largest component in landfills.
Mhm.
But the burning of unsold clothes is a big problem. And there was an article last week in Apparel Insider that in certain African nations where they have, for economic growth, they actually accept Western garbage, which is a business model. Rich nations ship their garbage to poorer nations for a fee. There's so much textile in the landfills there that local folks are going and getting those textiles and using it as actual fuel in cooking stoves and in burning it every day. And it's becoming a real problem because you're burning polyester, you're breathing in some terrible stuff. But specifically, the problem is big in sub-Saharan Africa, where, you know, burning wood is not easy to come by. Drought is horrible. So brush and dung, which has been the cooking and subsistence farming fuel forever, is now being replaced by polyester burning. So there's the issue is there's just so much that even Western nations, if they can't dump it and they can't sell it to somebody, it takes such big chunks into landfills because it doesn't really biodegrade, and they try to keep landfills small, but it burns easily. So they'll just put it into incinerators. And the fumes that come out of that is just awful, awful.
So I know you have to go, but I will, take your word and invite you back.
I would love to come back.
Okay,
Sorry to run you off. Please discuss more.
okay.
This was great. I mean, you've given us a lot to think about, and I think as advocates and consumers, we have a lot to do. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
We'll be in touch.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so now, Shadell, you want to switch to our next guest? Go ahead. We're not hearing you.
Good. So we are happy to welcome Ms. Janelle Penny Camijon as a presenter on a program. Ms. Camijon was born in Port-of-Spain, Trinidad, and she is the daughter of a Venezuelan mother and Trinidadian father. She lived in Trinidad in her early years, and then she migrated to the United States when she was 13. Fashion inspired her, and so she attended the famous Fashion Institute of Technology in New York, where she attained her degree. She returned to Trinidad and Tobago 10 years later in 1976 to open a boutique and to pursue business interest. And then in 1977, she entered the Miss Trinidad and Tobago beauty pageant, mostly to get exposure for her business. She went on to win in June 1977, and later she became the first Black Miss Universe, and also seized the title of Miss Photogenic. The entire Caribbean celebrated with Trinidad, but it was a big win for people of color worldwide. Her win resonated with girls globally like me at the time, and we were so inspired to accept that we can achieve great things and have global impact, even though we came from a small island. Later that year, she was awarded the Trinity Cross, the highest national honor of Trinidad and Tobago. In addition, 3 stamps of different values bear her image. In 2017, 40 years after her historic wins, Queen Street in Port-of-Spain was renamed Queen Janelle Camijon Street. She is a professional boat builder and consummate businesswoman and heads the company Bowen Marine. Penny is an avid supporter of education and of our youth, and she has also made contributions on behalf of Trinidad and Tobago on the governmental level in the field of tourism. She continues to be an ambassador for Trinidad and an incredible inspiration to us all. it gives me the greatest pleasure to welcome you, Mr. Nell Penny Kamajan. I've been a keen follower of you and admirer since you became Miss Universe, and you have inspired me all of my life. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I've told our host here that when you won, when you came back to Trinidad, there was a grand celebration and a parade in the streets. And I happened to be in Trinidad then. And since then, I've just fallen in love and just followed your work. And you really have been an inspiration to so many young girls like me. Thank you so much.
Wow, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks for all the incredible contributions you have made to our world and for being such an inspiration to people. May you reign forever. Long live our queen, and welcome to Environmental Fridays.
Yeah, I do. Thank you. I mean, my apologies. I was having some very difficult issues with my iPad. I'm so sorry I missed Nikolay's presentation because just looking at the follow-up questions and conversations, it's fascinating. It's quite a fascinating area. And it's one that we don't think about. We go after fashion, but it's interesting. And I think if we can get it out to younger people, because I like the fact that he gave statistics and gave the ages and gave those, you know, the generation that's really now running the retail industry. And it shows that that's the generation we need to be sort of targeting in terms of this. Yeah. Sorry, I missed it, but I'll go back and look at the recording.
That's right. You'll get the recording. And
Yes.
did you hear that he also graduated from the Fashion Institute?
I heard that. Yes, I came on. Yes, I heard that. Yes, yes.
Okay.
It'll also be interesting to see how FIT has changed over the years. Huh? It'll be interesting to see, you know, the different courses that they now offer compared to when we were there. Yeah,
That's correct. That's correct. So I have the first couple of questions. So from our conversations, I know that you just had a hectic carnival, yet enjoyable season, and I emphasize you, okay? So what were some of your highlights? What costumes did you wear? What became of it?
what became of it? Well, you know, there were 2 days. I kind of did a lot. I did the Juve, which, you know, it's a separate band, and then Monday and Tuesday, I did the Peter Samuel band with the backpack and the big, you know, costume. And at the end of this Tuesday, I couldn't wait to get it off. And I just zeroed for the truck. There was this flatbed truck, and I just took that thing off and dumped it there without any thought except, God, it's good to get this off of my body because you're carrying this all day. And it's not until the next Wednesday morning, I happened to look at television and I saw a young woman talking about carny cycle. And it's the first I had heard or seen or even knew that there was such a thing. And I said, oh my God, that is great. And then it makes you think. It made me think of all of those leftover costumes that people just discard on the streets between Monday and Tuesday. And it just made me think about really what happens with all of that. So it just worked nicely into this.
Yes.
It's not something I knew about or expected. I'm just seeing the young lady on television talking about it. And I said, well, good. I'm just hoping that people are watching and thinking past having the enjoyment of wearing fabulous costumes. Yeah.
So the young lady may be here with us, Danny.
Okay.
Danny, are you still with us? Is she still here? Yeah, she's from Tobago. She was on earlier and she gave a quick presentation too about what Carney Cycle is doing and how they were formed and all of that. She is a chemical engineer. She graduated from Howard University. And yeah, they saw a need and an opportunity and you know, decided to try to address it. So we'll probably have her maybe next season, season 5, to come and do a full, because it is a problem, right? Not only
for sure. For sure, it's been a problem, but it's not the problem we thought about.
right.
We ever thought about it. I didn't think about it. As I said, I took it off and just threw it on the truck. And looking at her, I'm like, wow, it made me think. It made me think. So it's an area that that's needed in terms of the information.
It was a pretty sizable costume that you had.
Sizable enough because I haven't done this for many, many years. I actually stopped for a while. So
Okay.
it's just sizable and comfortable, you know. Yeah, but you know, you're part of the band, so you've got to, you know, be part of the whole presentation. Yeah,
Okay.
but as I said, I can wait to get it off.
Was
I'm
it
quite sure I'm not alone.
was it depicting something, a bird, a tree, or what?
It was just images of, oh, I've got low battery. It was just images of different what was the concept of the band? Kinetic, different energies. So it was just different images. So that the basic costume stays pretty simple.
Okay.
And then you put this backpack on. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Shadell?
So, Penny, we know that you are a very accomplished global figure, an entrepreneur, community leader. Can you tell us a little bit more about what's happening now, your present passion projects, your pastimes, your hobbies?
Oh gosh, I tend to just move from thing to thing, you know, as it comes up, as somebody comes into my space. I'm actually just trying to wind down a bit because I've been active and working, as I said, all my life, you know, all of my life. As you mentioned, I got into the Miss Universe more for business. I never did the beauty queen thing even after. It was always one business after another. As I mentioned to Desmond, when people ask me now, what do you consider yourself? I consider I'm a boat builder because for me, that was my biggest accomplishment. Just taking over my husband's business, not selling it, just running it for 14 years and learning how to build a boat. That was quite an accomplishment. And I think that shows that when you want to do something, you can, if you just put your mind to it.
Mhm.
Because when Brian passed away, I swear, I didn't even know what a mold was. I was married to him. He was a boat builder. I didn't. So it was having to go into the factory and learn from scratch. And I had some extremely good staff. They saw that I was committed to keeping the business running. And I learned how to build boats. So for me, that's over the Miss Universe thing. That for me is my biggest my biggest
Accomplishment. Yeah.
It is. For me,
That
it
is
is.
pretty amazing, you know. I mean, to get into an industry that, you know, you did not really know about, and an industry that is also very it's dominated by males, I would think.
Very well, very much so. It was, I'm not sure what it is today. I'm sure it hasn't changed much. A very, very male industry. It was men bought the product and men made the product. I was the only woman in the factory. My entire staff were men, you know, and also back then, you know, it's the money factor was also very important because when you're buying a boat, it's not something, you know, it's disposable income in a sense. So that also had an impact in terms of, you know, it's a woman running the business, so you're writing the checks to a woman. So that was interesting as well. Yeah, so I'm not sure how much it has changed. I'm sure it has, but back then, as I not remember, but as I say, the product was used by men, and the business, the factories were run primarily by men. So I was just very different in this industry, and I was different that, you know, the beauty queen has now come to build boats. So that's also people didn't expect.
So can you tell us a bit about the boats that you built? What kind of boats and who were your customers? Were they
okay, the brand was called Bowen. It was after my husband's name, Brian Bowen. It was called Bowen. Brian was you know, some people are born to do things. He was born to do that. He was a, you know, extremely good, well-recognized boat builder. He designed his own boats. He designed between the deep V hull, which tends to be the pleasure boat hull, the V, and what is in Trinidad and in the region called a pirogue. And the Bowen pirogues were the best in terms of the pirogue design. Well, they were, without a doubt. They were for fishing, and also you also could have done it for pleasure. So we did from the deep V's went from sizes 22 feet all the way up to 38. The pirogues were 32, and then when I was there, we did something smaller called 28. And many of the larger boats, like the 38s, for instance, deep V's, those were racing boats. So
Okay.
yeah, so Boeing Marine participated in races, you know, in Puerto Rico, through the region. Before I was there, boats were exported to Australia. While I was there, boats were exported to Puerto Rico, Guadeloupe, Martinique, new markets. Yeah, so it was
That's
a
fantastic.
very
Yeah, I
was
know that.
a great experience.
Wonderful. I know that the Trinidadians support our fishing and sailing tournaments in Grenada, so I'm sure a lot of your boats were there
Right.
as well.
Right, yes. We did a lot of, quite a bit of it in Grenada, which is what we did was very separate from sailboats. It's a very separate, two completely different things, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right,
Yes.
so what are some life lessons that you would like to pass on to the youth? Because I've also, in my research, also learned that one of the things that you've done and continue to do is going to schools, grade schools, you know, secondary schools, junior sex, and talk to the students, trying to inspire them. You don't want to just be, in your words, you don't want to be just an icon, you want to be inspiring the next generation. So what are some of these lessons you think, like 2 or 3, that you want to pass on to them?
Well, based on the schools that I go to and the communities, one thing that I've seen that's really very important is to pass on self-esteem. I'm not sure of the other islands, but I know in Trinidad, a lot of, based on the communities, self-esteem is lacking. And based on the school you go to, you're not seen, or you're not seen as being bright and smart, so that you carry that with you. So that's what I try to speak to, self-esteem, and where you go to school has nothing to do with the person that you are. And also, there isn't anything that you cannot do. Once it's something you want to do, you put your mind to it. Also, it's important, and I've seen this post-COVID, it's very important to kind of keep an eye outside, and outside meaning in the wider world, to see the different areas that are now important in this world. You know, what we would have thought of before, things have changed. So it's important for young people to be au courant with what is happening in the wider world in terms of profession. It's no longer just being a doctor. There, with COVID especially, many areas have opened up in terms of medicines, you know, just outside of just the idea before was to be a doctor, you know, the prestigious thing. So they need to kind of open to look outside of our environment to see what is important in the wider world. Certainly technology, data, that's what's running the world now. So, you know, just to get them out of what was traditionally the area. So that's important.
Yeah, so we still use the word bright and stuff?
Oh gosh, and I detest it. I absolutely detest that. I was in you know, one of the more underprivileged communities a couple months ago, and here I'm speaking to this young man who was a great woodworker, doing woodwork, and he said, well, you know, I wasn't bright in school, so I went and did this. And that is what has been such a negative thing in our system, because you know, you grow up thinking if you're not academically bright, you're just not worth anything. So I'd like to see a change where that's concerned, you know, in terms of those skills, in terms of technology skills. It's not all about the book and passing the exam. And I say that's what Trinidadians do well. We know how to pass exams. We do that. We do that very well. It's not about that anymore.
Yeah, that's very true. It's all about passing the exam. So one of the things that you kind of mentioned in passing too was that you go from project to project. My question or request, or however you look at it, is we have some projects for you to work on.
Oh, But we can talk that offline. We can
And
talk that offline.
It begins with this.
Oh, with this, okay, we can do that. We can talk that offline. I also have some projects for you, so it can be a reciprocal thing. It can be a reciprocal thing, yeah.
Can I say something, Desmond?
Sure.
It's such a pleasure, and the same as Shadell, it was the most beautiful thing when Miss Janelle Penny Cummings Young won the Miss Universe. It gave, you talked about self-esteem, it gave girls, especially in the Caribbean, that self-esteem that you just talked about. It gave us that. It gave us that. We all knew we were Miss Janelle Penny Cummings Young. We just knew it. You from Trinidad, you're naturally, it was in your DNA. But so thank you for that. But I have an organization that is a global organization that works with, we work in Trinidad as well, with social emotional education and wellness, where we focus on helping young people learn those non-cognitive skills, such as self-awareness, self-esteem, social awareness, relationship management, responsible decision-making skills. I would love to talk with you offline. Actually, I am Desmond's sister.
Oh,
So
okay.
I would, this is some nepotism, but I really don't care because it's for the greater good. And I would love to talk with you offline so that
So we can do that.
Yeah, because we do work in the Caribbean and in other parts of the globe, as well as in the US.
Yeah.
So I will liaise with Desmond to get.
Help me out after.
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome.
Okay,
Thanks.
good. So we have one last question from
Okay, because I think I'm about, hopefully we can hang in until.
Yes.
So we'll make it quick. Now, life can be a roller coaster, lots of ups and downs. You've had tragedy and incredible successes. So what keeps you positive and motivated and keep your spirits so alive?
I don't know. I tell people a lot of it when I get the compliments about everything. I said, I've kind of had nothing to do with the DNA in a sense. Yeah, and I also come from a family. I remember as a child, my aunts, they all worked, they were all, so that's just part of the community, part of the family I think I grew up in. And I just never see anything as impossible or I can't do it. Once I see something, I'm like, oh, okay, I like that. That's interesting. I go after it or I do it. I just do it. Yeah, so it's hard for me to explain that side of me. I just go out and do things as I see the opportunity or as I see a business opportunity. But I do things that I like.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't remember getting into anything that I don't like. I tend to do things that I like or that I find are interesting. Right. And that also is a message I would like to give young people. You've got to like it. You have to like it. And the passion develops after you like something. I always give this little story. I was on a board and one of the directors asked me, oh, Penny, what is your daughter going to do? I said, oh, I think she wants to do nursing. And he said to me, Penny, why don't you tell her to be a doctor? I said, because she wants to do nursing. And as my husband said, she'll never want for a job in her life. Because as I said to someone recently, look at us in Trinidad. Where are our nurses from? The Philippines, Cuba, right. So that, exactly. So that speaks to the point my husband made, that she never want for a job, but she's still gone on. She has since gone on to do something else because she kind of just fell into another medical area, which is histology. And that's what she's, recently started doing, graduated, and she's doing that. But it's what you want. I mean, you listen to your parents, and especially in today's world, it's changing so fast. I don't think the parents are aware of the changes. So you've got to kind of know what you want as well, and go after it. Yeah, very important, especially post-COVID.
Yes.
Well,
So
thanks for all that.
Susan?
Thanks for all that you do, and thanks for doing
Thank
everything
you.
so well.
Yeah, thank
Really, you
Nice.
have been a great motivation to Caribbean people, and I think to girls worldwide. And we're just so happy for your leadership, for your encouragement, for showing that you can go out there and do it if you believe in yourself.
Thank
So-
you. Thank you for having me, Desmond. Thank you all for hanging around until I got myself sorted out this morning.
We wouldn't have
Thank you.
missed you for the world, and just wish you
Yeah.
continued success and happiness.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
God
All
bless you.
right. Okay,
Enjoy the weekend, everyone.
you too, you
Yes,
too.
and we'll talk.
Bye.
All
Okay,
right.
bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Take
Take
care.
care.
All right, bye-bye.